We're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's June 12th here in Seoul. I'm Shin Yeun, and this is News Generation, where we make the news at Arirang's very own open studio. Every morning, we'll discuss the top issues and latest current affairs affecting people in their 20s and 30s. Joining me in the studio is Kim Seong.
Happy Monday, Ian.
Good morning. And now Song.
Good morning, everyone.
All right, and both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. As usual, let's start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. Earlier in May, a small plane crashed in the Amazon, killing 3 adults and leaving 4 children missing. After a long search and rescue, Colombian soldiers on Friday finally found the 4 siblings alive. The 4 braved the jungle for 40 days, surviving on cassava flour and fruits in the rainforest. The children were aged 13, 9, 4, and 11 months. We're now going to move on to our second story, shifting our focus to what happened here in Korea over the weekend. A lightning strike hit Yangyang Beach in Gangwon-do Province. The lightning hit 6 people on Saturday, some who had just come back from surfing and some who used an umbrella to rest by the shore. This killed a 36-year-old man and injured 5 others. Moving on to some lighter news. Last Tuesday, the 4th edition of the action role-playing game Diablo was released in Korea. Just 3 days into its release, it ranked the 3rd most popular game played at PC rooms. The number of people who looked for the game jumped by 2 percentage points during this period. Many users went on social media to say how they used their work holidays to go to PC rooms just to play the latest edition. Now we're going to take a closer look at the 3rd news item. Diablo 4's release was great news for PC room owners in Korea. According to the Korea Creative Content Agency, over the past 10 years, the number of people who visited PC rooms has actually dropped by more than half. But more PC room owners in the country told local media outlets how they're hoping to see yet another boom. At PC rooms, users can play the game for a much cheaper price, especially since they've been seeing a spike in customers since Diablo 4's release. Now, I'd like to focus our attention to what you guys think about gaming and whether you've actually been to PC rooms. I'd like to ask you now, do you think gaming is a popular and actually healthy hobby for our generation?
Well, it is definitely common for sure. I used to go to PC rooms with my brother, my husband, and we would kind of, spend the night there playing.
Spend the whole night?
The whole night. But I mean, I've never played Diablo, but yeah, it's kind of a fun way to, spend your weekend, if you will. But I don't know if I would take out a vacation day from work. But I think the rule of thumb is balance. Whether you're super addicted to it and can't live a normal life, then there's a little bit of a red flag there.
But I could totally relate with how you could stay there the whole night. Now that PC rooms have a lot of different food and beverages.
Diablo will also take whole weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a very long game. It goes on forever.
Exactly.
It seems that you know a bit about gaming.
Yeah, I mean, it's been around for ages now. I think it was made by Blizzard, who made quite a bit of other big games as well. StarCraft, I think, is also made by Blizzard. I played a bit of StarCraft, national sport of South Korea, some might say. Back in the days, at least. Now Son's leading the football scene.
Yeah. So would you be able to relate with using paid days off just to go to PC rooms to play the latest edition of new games?
To be honest, I think that's quite a responsible thing to do. If you've got a job and if you want to spend time gaming and then, you got your job the next day, you've got to start early morning, you don't want to spend all night. If you use your paid holidays and, really just get into the game, spend a whole day, that does make sense. I approve of that myself. If I get into gaming like that, I would do that as well. PC Bang's having a difficult time as well because during COVID, it was all locked down. None of them could go. A lot of them, I think, went out of business as well. So this might be a good opportunity for them to revive their business.
Especially since in Korea, the esports industry is growing exponentially as well. So we'll hopefully see more people head on to these PC rooms. Now, that was our news feed for this Monday. Let's move on to today's discussion topic. Today, we've chose a topic closely related to the intention and traits of our program. We're going to be talking about how Korea defines youth. Take a look at the screen to find out more. With longer life expectancy and better healthcare, it's hard to determine what we consider young. What does it mean to be young? Well, in Korea, the health ministry defines youth to be those between the ages 19 and 34. But local authorities have been flexible with this. Some extended the range of youth to the age of 45. Some have lowered the minimum age from 19 to 15. That's what NewsGen aims to look at today. 1. Why do people have different ideas behind what ages are considered youth? 2. What does our generation think is the appropriate age range to be called young? 3. How do other countries define youth, and why is this the case? NewsGen is all about delivering the thoughts and stories of young people, but how old do you have to be considered young? That seems to be an essential question for many authorities launching different welfare policies. So Xiong, before we go any deeper, could you tell us how South Korea defines youth?
Yes, I mean, when hearing the categorization of youth, you automatically think of biologically young people, including teenagers, up to young adults. But official age group categorization seems to vary. For example, I've worked with the startup sector in Korea, which receives extended financial and technical support from government entities. And quite often I saw varying age limits depending on the host organization, which left room for potential confusion. I've organized a comparison of youth groups defined by law and local government authorities.
All right.
Let's have a look at the screen. Korea's Framework Act on Youth, implemented on August 2020, defines the official age of youth to be between 19 and 34. But according to the Office of Government Policy Coordination, depending on the support program, eligibility for youth support can go from 15 all the way up to 45.
Wow.
Now, this caused quite a lot of debate on whether it is fair to include conventionally older age groups in the youth category.
And as Xiong just mentioned, it seems to differ based on where you're living, whether you could
Right.
be considered young enough to be youth. Could you explain to us a little bit more?
Yeah, for example, Ulsan was raising the standard of youth all the way up till age 39 from 35. And this would actually mean that they have extra 70,000 people who are considered youth in the category. And Jeollanam-do, which has the lowest population of youth, they already had it up till 39 and are now increasing it to age 45.
Wow.
And this increased the youth population by 143,000, which means 30% of their population is young.
Right.
And this means like there's a total of 58 different regions in Korea which adjusted the standard of youth, and they all have different standards. So I understand that it's super complicated. But even in the midst of all this, some places still decreased because Chungcheongbuk-do Danyang increased the age range from to 49.
49?
49 back in 2017.
You're forcing them back into youth.
Yeah, you're a youth, and it still decreased. The population of youth still decreased 10% over the course of 5 years.
You briefly mentioned that this is because local authorities want to keep young people within their region. But Xiong, could you also elaborate on other reasons why we have
Yeah, I mean,
different
so as now mentioned, and as we know in Korea, different provinces in South Korea differ drastically in their conditions as well. So we have about 20% or 10 million of the country's population living in metropolitan Seoul itself. More rural areas lack a younger population, as many leave their hometown to either study or work in the country's capital.
Right.
Therefore, the local authorities are forced to expand youth age group categorization to a higher age to successfully execute their youth support programs, as otherwise they will simply not be able to spend their entire allocated funding.
And I think based on wherever we are, we're safely still under the category of youth for sure.
Are we?
Hopefully, right?
I mean, we are, I guess, but you
Yes.
know, now our elder cousins,
Yeah.
people who are
on the borderline.
you know, our managements, our managers are coming
Exactly.
back into
They
the same
didn't make
youth
the cut.
category. Yeah.
Exactly. So I would like to ask you two youth here in the studio where you guys stand on this issue. Are you for or against extending the age frame of whom we consider youth starting with now?
Yeah, I'm not super for it because it's not really a smart resolution for the long run. I understand that we have a decreasing population of youth, but just because you include more people in this category does not, we shouldn't look away from the fact that we do have a decreasing population.
Right.
Right.
And, you know, maybe then we should distribute the funds, like Xiong was mentioning, because if they're not able to use it all, then maybe we should use it in different, I guess, categories and different age groups.
More
And
direct support.
yeah, and they should maybe focus a little bit more on immigration or pro-birth policies to make more youth for the future. And yeah, I think because this is where all our tax money is heading, definitely would be wise to spend it in a
wise
distributed-
manner.
Yeah.
I completely agree, because some people might ask, you guys are young, why do you guys care about this question itself, like who we consider to be youth? It's because it all has to do with our tax money, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah,
Where do you
exactly.
stand on this issue?
I mean, I'm kind of pro
Okay.
extending the age limit as well. I mean, the aforementioned Framework Act on Youth was implemented to provide effective youth policies to solve problems such as youth unemployment, low birth rate and marriage rates, as you mentioned, and housing issues related to the ever so high real estate prices, especially in the capital city, Seoul. So I think the current support programs do provide a decent definition of eligibility in the sense that it has flexibility in age groups when necessary, whilst allowing grants and additional support for the socially and financially vulnerable members of the society. And more people are spending time on higher education and training courses to achieve their ideal jobs on top of mandatory military service for the Korean men, which push the age of financially independent up the scale. So I see the extension of age limit when necessary as a positive move, especially when the allocated budget is not fully utilized. So if our tax money is going to be allocated, distributed into local governments or metropolitan government, different cities, we might as well use the full extent of it and increase the age limit when necessary. So the actual, well, they might not be young in our sense, in the conventional sense, but if they receive funding, they could be more active in society. They could achieve a better goal, make a better living, and possibly even get a better housing, contribute to the country.
But it's definitely a tricky issue because with longer life expectancy, I think it's really hard to consider what's young. I mean, when I talk to my dad, he's in his 50s and he still considers himself in his 20s. And he's like, I'm youthful.
I mean, if he's going to live to 150, by ratio is still youth.
That is true.
Exactly. That's why I think it's now a good time to compare our policies with those abroad. So Nell, could you tell us how other countries define youth and what type of welfare programs or policies they have that maybe we could blueprint off of?
Right, like different regions in Korea, different countries have various definitions of youth. And in Europe, there's this policy called the Youth Guarantee, where all members of the EU guarantee a quality offer of employment for different types of youth. And they also provide opportunity to continue their education or go into different types of apprenticeships. In France, it's actually for age 15 to 25. And Denmark, Finland, Sweden, and Belgium have raised their upper age limit all the way up to 34 years. And New Zealand also has the same policy, but they also give grants for free for people to study.
Right.
All right, I see. And we're now going to include a sociology expert to expand our discussion. We'll join him right after this. To find out why we really need to be thinking about this topic, we're going to add a sociology expert in our talks. It's Zach Almquist, the editor-in-chief from the Journal of Mathematical Sociology. Great to have you with us, Zach.
Hello,
Zach.
great to be here.
Welcome.
All right, Zach, I'd like to ask you the first question. Why does defining youth matter, and why should our generation specifically be interested in this issue?
This is a complex question, and I really like it. What is youth in the modern world is a really changing question. So, the UN typically defines it between 15 and 24, but as the whole world ages, we tend to see older, people who wouldn't have been considered youth as younger now. Youth is sort of that transition from, when people can vote, when people can run from office. It gives you your sense of when people are going to graduate college, when people should be expected to buy a house, have children, move up in their careers. And so, whatever people think of as the normative age is going to affect, when they look around and saying, am I doing well? Are other people doing well? What should my expectations be? And I think this sort of definition of youth that comes out by the federal governments and by media and social organizations will really shape how people think of themselves as doing.
Yeah, I mean, Zach, as well as you've given some good definitions, it does really confuse us because a lot of the times when the governments are trying to provide some support programs, youth age groups differ. And usually, conventionally, we had the financial and social status to define them. But any benefits or drawbacks from extending the age group of youth? I mean, is it an effective solution for the future?
I mean, it's going to change, like you guys have been talking about, the adjustment of money, right? So if we change the category to be larger, people will have access to the funds that we allocate by policy for youth there, but we'll lose the ones for older. As we have an aging population, right, we're going to need more and more money for people as they go into elder care facilities. So that could be a big issue. We maybe expect people to get into the workforce later, but maybe we really need them to get in the workforce earlier. I mean, maybe we really want to define it the other way, right? Shrink the youth.
Yeah.
Right. My last question for you is, how does U.S. define youth, and what are some related welfare policies for this age group?
So generally speaking, the youth definition in the U.S. Is typically around the UN definition, loosely, 18 to 24. There's some clear examples that are different. So healthcare in the U.S., is attached to people's employment. So if you're unemployed, you can be really hard to get healthcare in the U.S. If you're still in that youth category, you can be on your parents' health insurance. So that's a huge deal, right? You can get access to care without being employed. Voting happens sort of at the end of youth. Youth kind of ends when you can run for federal office. Right. So when you turn 25, all of a sudden you can. Yeah, exactly. And other things like you can rent a car easier. Getting out of that youth category gives you access to a lot of things. But of course, you lose things like access to healthcare, easier access to college, that sort of thing.
Then I'd like to ask you one more question, Zach. Here in Korea, it seems that local authorities are trying to extend the definition of youth for, better welfare, better economic activity. Are you for or against that?
I think as much as people need it and they're doing the work and understanding what's needed as sort of the population ages, the median age in the US now is 38. I think in South Korea it's around 43. That's a big shift from 20-30 years, right, where it would have been closer to 30. And, you go back even farther and it would have been in the mid-20s. So thinking about how to deal with that social and economic change is always, I think, good. And, as long as people are figuring out correctly where the allocation of money should be going for the different age groups,
let me word that better. I think this might be a better question. You mentioned elder care as well. Do you think it's more beneficial in the points of, the millennials and Gen Zs as well, whether we should fund elder care or youth support? What do you think would be more ideal?
I mean, I like looking forward on the youth side. I think the elder care is going to be one of the biggest social issues of the future. It's massively looming here in the US. I can't imagine it's not massively looming in South Korea. And we just don't have the workers to support and staff everything. So thinking how to manage that is going to be a big deal.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. That was Zach Almquist, the editor-in-chief from the Journal of Mathematical Sociology. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach.
All right, and before we continue our talks, we're also going to hear from our global viewers and how they define youth. Take a look at the screen to find out. Shay Luna Midnight said, I think you can have a youthful state of mind. However, anyone who's 40 years and older is a grown-up. Makarungi said, I think the age of youth could be 20 to 35 years, and that's international age. Hussein Demir said, I think anyone below the median age of the country can be considered youth. It's 44 for South Korea and 39 for the U.S., which Zach also mentioned. Now, before we end off, I'd like to ask you guys the same question. How can we define youth? What's your personal definition now?
As much as we say that youth is a state of mind, when it comes to government policies and support, I would say it's around 30, And after 30, a lot of people come to a different stage in life, whether it be their careers, their physical state, or with their families. And, perhaps there should be another category between youth and middle age.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, and we say age is just a number, but with age comes experience and knowledge that serves as an advantage over your younger self.
Right.
So I mean, to be honest, but if you even if you have, if you start from not much education, poorer social background and things like that, with age, you'll come with experience. You might have figured yourself out, a way out as well, have a proper job, make a good income and salary. And for that reason, in providing public support for the youth, I kind of think we should actually just limit it up to maybe the age of 30.
Okay.
And I mean, that makes sense to give them a bit of a competitive advantage rather than people who are already in their 40s, who've lived quite a long life and seen how to go about in the world. If they're doing okay when they're 40, that means they kind of figured themselves out by then.
Right.
And considering what used to be the 2 years mandatory military service for the Korean men, losing 2 years of your crucial years of your life, of your youth, I think maybe being more lenient and giving them up to age 35.
Right, consider that,
it would be a good idea as well for different programs, different funding and things like that.
And Xiong, I'd like to ask you the last question, like how you would like to see youth policies go, because during the interview you asked a really important question. With society aging, should we focus more on senior welfare or more youth? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, to be honest, for policy improvement, I think we must have legislative support. So I can suggest a few legislative improvement measures. First, enacting follow-up laws for the realization of specific youth policy. Second, the establishment of support system for youth organization and facilities. Third, establishment of youth funds, as well as distinct allocation of function between the state and local governments. And last but most importantly, strengthening the participation of youth in the process of determining youth policy.
And hand in hand, I think what should go is more support for senior welfare policies, because as much as it's important to define youth, we should also be considering what we're going to be doing.
Like pre-support and post-support.
Exactly, post-support.
You got to balance it right,
It's
so
a
there's
lifelong
no,
thing.
destruction of either side.
Balance
For
is key.
Exactly. And all right, that's all we have for you today. We'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Kim Xiong
My pleasure, Ian.
and Niall Song.
No problem.
Thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are
New Generation.